Hello everybody, and welcome back to Swansea City Adventures. I'm Chris Ormie, and today we're going to have a look back at our 7th season in our run to the top with my local team, Swansea City. So, we're going to jump straight in and take a look at what happened as we move just over the halfway point in the save. Well, here you can see our starting few fixtures, the pre-season friendlies. And we started out okay. Partick Thistle away, a nice big win. That's always a bonus. Then Montreal Impact away again, another decent win. Quite happy with those two. Then we had two real tests, two big home games, Real Madrid and Hamburger SV of Germany. So, a 3-1 win over the Spanish Giants, 4-1 win over HSV. Pretty good, 4 wins out of 4 in pre-season. Conceded 3 goals, scored 17. So we did okay. Really quite pleased with how pre-season went, how the entire build up to the season sort of progressed along. And I thought we might be in for a really good season. Next up was the European Super Cup game. We managed to overcome Liverpool in that 1-0. So, a bright start to the campaign again, a clean sheet. Tighter than I would have hoped, but on the whole, a win's a win. It's another trophy, and it was a really nice pickup, so quite glad to have that done. Also early on in the season, we managed to pick up the Community Shield. We faced off against Tottenham Hotspur and ran a big win this year, 4-0. So easy couple of games to start us off. 2 trophies, minor trophies, but we kept 2 clean sheets against 2 Premier League opponents and scored 5 goals. So in those very few opening games, just after the friendlies, we're on red hot form to start with, and it boded well for the season ahead in domestic competitions. The next competition to finish was the Club World Cup, and we were invited to this, of course, because we won the European Champions League last season. We also managed to win this competition last season, but this year we faced the Honduran team Olympia in the semi-finals, which we won 5-0. Again, a very pleasing performance, a good number of shots on target, and we ran out the easy winners in the end. We'd face up against Flamengo, the Brazilian side. They do tend to do well in these competitions, as they overcame South Korean team Pohang 1-0. So in the final, I had to play my best team. I had to make sure that my tactics were right, because Brazilian teams are quite dangerous in this competition. You'll always get a Brazilian or an Argentinian team in the final. I think very, very rarely have I seen anything except those, and on the odd occasion it has been a Mexican. So you've got to make sure you're playing at your best, because they're not easy teams. You can't just play your reserves like I could in the semi-final and expect to win big. But we couldn't keep a clean sheet. We did manage to get the win, 3-1, and yet another trophy in the cabinet. So really good progress once again. And then we move on to the Capital One Cup. Now this is a competition we've been winning already during this save, so I had high expectations. Fulham away, a tough game, but we ran out 9-1 winners. We ran away with the game. They couldn't compete with us. We were too good. We created too many opportunities. It's a shame we conceded, but 9-1. I can't be upset with the players for conceding 1 goal away from home. We moved on then to Tottenham. So we'd beaten them in that Community Shield earlier on in the season. We were up against them, we were at home, and it was a nice comfortable 3-0 win. So a really easy round. You know, not as easy as the previous, but still fairly cool. Everton were up next, again at home, and at home in this save we always used to do well. It didn't really matter who we were drawn against, we could really compete for possession, shots on target, and just overall dominance against anyone in the world. So Everton came to visit, 5-0 win for us, a very pleasing performance because Everton were on a good run of form at this point in the season, and you know, 5-0, it's a clean sheet, it's a lot of goals, it's pleasing for me as a manager to see my tactics working like that, to see the players playing well, and also I think for the fans, because it's at home, it gets them behind the team, it takes a little bit of pressure off me and the players to perform, and I think it worked out really well. Next up, Newcastle, doing well to get late on in the competition again. I sent my reserves out for the away leg. They managed to pick up a 1-0 win at St James's Park. I thought that was a very, very good result. But I was also a little worried because Newcastle were scoring goals for fun. So I figured I'd play my first team at home. We ran up the score a little bit, but I needed to make sure we could get the job done. So 6-0 on the day, 7-0 in aggregate. Probably flattered us a little bit, but my first team, and especially the wingers of Oxlade-Chamberlain and Gareth Bale, tore up the Newcastle defence. So that was a huge, huge win for us. Put us into the final. And in the final, we met Man City, 3-1 winners there, to lift up the Capital One Cup trophy again. A very, very dominant performance from us, solid at the back. I think they scored from a corner if I remember correctly. I think it was 3 corners in a row, and their pressure finally, paid off. But at that point we were already either 2 or 3-0 up. The game was already sort of in our hands. We just needed to cross the finish line, and we managed to do that. So a pretty pleasing performance there as well in the Capital One Cup. And here you can see the 4th round onwards of the Capital One Cup. We have a pretty decent run through. As you can see, a lot of goals, but so have other teams, and especially Man City. So we met them in the final. They overcame first QPR 4-0, then they overcame Chelsea 5-1, 7-2 over Oldham over the 2 legs. So they're pretty much matching up against us each step of the way. But in the final, we managed to get the job done. So that was really good. I think a notable and creditable performance from Oldham, beating Brighton, who were in the Championship, Leeds in the Championship, and they did come unstuck against Man City, but they did score 2 goals. Oldham at this point were down into League 2. I think they were fighting for their lives against relegation as well. So this cup run probably didn't help them on that front. But it was really nice to see them go into the semi-finals and nearly make it to the final. And now we're quite deep into the season. We're coming towards the end of the season. The next competition to finish up was the FA Cup. 5-0 victors over Notts County, 3-0 over Middlesbrough, 2-0 over Coventry. All home ties, all championship opponents, lower league. So I expected to win, I expected clean sheets, and we did that every step of the way. Unfortunately, for the 6th round, we were drawn away from home. And not only that, we were drawn away to Liverpool, who had a very scary attacking midfield lineup at this point. I believe they'd brought in Gaston Ramirez, and I can't remember who else they brought in, but I know they had Gaston Ramirez down the middle, Suarez on the left. They had someone else on the right, of a similar quality to those two, and a good target man up front in Cornelius. So they were able to damage us, and away from home, we were still a little bit sketchy from time to time. Our form wasn't completely where it needed to be when we weren't at the Liberty, and we succumbed to a 3-2 loss, which is unfortunate, but you've got to take it on the chin. So another year without the FA Cup. As you can see here, we've got our run in the FA Cup ending in the 6th round to Liverpool. They didn't make it to the final. They were beaten by Man United. So Wolves got beaten 2-1, Everton 2-1, Liverpool 3-1, and that put Man United in the final. So tight games, but United just controlling their way through nice and simply. Reading 4-2 winners over Man City, huge result there. They got the job done against a lower league opponent in Colchester, 5-0. They saw off Burnley 2-0 in the semi as well. Good, credible performances all the way along. Nice and professional. Big win over Man City. And they held United to 1-0. They couldn't quite get the job done in the final. United's class told out in the end. But a really nice run for Reading. Just a shame that we couldn't push on further into the competition, because I felt we could have beaten Man United in the semi, and that would have given us a good chance in the final. But it wasn't to be. As I say, it's another year without the FA Cup. We were really sort of hoping to go a lot further in the competition, but for one reason or another we haven't ever been able to get the job done in our first 7 seasons. So hopefully we'll be able to pick that up in the next few seasons and actually lift the FA Cup. So as you can see, next competition up is the Champions League. So Group F, FC Copenhagen, Borussia Dortmund and Sparta Prague. Not a difficult group. Dortmund were the only ones that could have troubled us and ultimately did. But a big win to start us off, 7-1 in Copenhagen. That was a really good performance. Set the tone for the entire campaign. Well, we faced Dortmund at home, we got the points on the board, nice 5-1 win. Again, that home form really carrying us through against the bigger sides. 4-1 away to Sparta Prague, 6-0 in the return leg, and we'd qualified after 4 games again. So that allowed me to take my foot off the gas a little bit and, try a few youngsters out in the last couple of group games, just to see how they fit in and what else I'd need to tweak. So at home against Copenhagen, a big 9-0 win. Really pleased to get a clean sheet there. We were trying to rack up the score somewhat, and really good performances from a couple of youngsters that ultimately would go on over the next season. Well, the remainder of this season they sort of broke into the team, and next season established themselves. So really pleasing to be able to have the opportunity to put them in the team, test them out, and then after I saw they were good enough, to just hand them the reins. And then our final group game, we did play a couple of youngsters, but we lost 1-0 out in Germany. Dortmund are a really good team. It was away from home, and sadly we didn't have enough quality on the day. We wasted a lot of chances, but they were a very good team and they sealed second place in the group. So fair play to them, they played well. I can accept that loss. In the knockouts, 9-0 on aggregate to Fenerbahce, 5-0 away, 4-0 at home. We played our first team for the away leg and made sure we got the result we needed. At home again, the reserves stepped up, completed the job, allowing me just to freshen up my team, concentrate on other competitions as well. So that was sort of the pathway through. 2-1 at home to Ajax, again using the reserves. I still felt it was a very, very tough tie. So second leg I put up my first team again, and the exact same result, 2-1 away. So we managed to get through that one. Both games were tight, but job done. And then for this leg against Chelsea, 7-0 at home, I played my first team just to make sure that we weren't fighting in the second leg, and then I could easily play my reserves. They did City did really well, to be honest with you, but ultimately succumbing to a 3-2 loss. Again, Chelsea are a really tough team, so it wasn't a huge problem for us. I didn't worry about it, but there were enough performances in there to let me know I'd done a good job. And it got us to the final. So a fourth consecutive Champions League final, our third consecutive win, a hat-trick of Champions League titles, and it came over Real Madrid, so a really pleasing performance. We went 1-0 down very early on, a very swift counter, and my team weren't ready. A moment of individual brilliance by Gareth Bale levelled it at 1-1 just before half-time, and I managed to tweak things at half-time just to give us a fighting chance. So we stepped up to the plate, we came out fighting the second half, and Freddie Guarin really grabbed the midfield by the scruff of the neck and dragged us through the game. So a really pleasing performance just to finish off another Champions League season with that trophy. So you've seen our run to the final. Let's have a look at our opponents in that final, Real Madrid. A big 6-0 win in the knockout round over Dynamo Kiev. Then a 5-1 win over Tottenham Hotspur. They then came up against Arsenal in one of the ties of the tournament. 9-5 on aggregate. A phenomenal set of games. Madrid coming out on top, of course, to meet us in the final. But at that point, I believe, Arsenal did tire them out. That was a game they had to fight for every step of the way over 2 legs. And, that did help us a little. And we did run out comfortable winners in the end. So, really pleasing performance on the whole in the Champions League again. So, last competition we're going to look at is the Premier League, of course. So, we start off with 3 really tough games. Arsenal away, Liverpool at home, Chelsea away. 7 points, a great start to the season there. Really set us up. So 4-1 over Arsenal, 5-0 over Liverpool, 1-1 at Stamford Bridge. So it wasn't the best of starts, but it could have gone a lot worse for us. After that, 2 home ties against relegation contenders. Reading first up, 6-0 winners, and then 7-0 over Aston Villa. Really pleasing performances. We had a hat-trick then of wins away from home. Watford and Hull are expected. The Man City game was unexpected. I thought maybe we get a draw there if we played well. I think City had an off day. We really capitalised on it, and well, I'm really pleased that we did, to be honest with you, because it put us on top of the pile early, and we were never really in danger of sort of falling out of the top 2 or 3 for the rest of the season thanks to this good start. So it's back home after that game. Norwich 4-1, West Brom 4-1. Mid-table sides, but still tricky opposition. We overcame them. 2 away games. Tottenham, who were fighting at the top, we beat 1-0. And then Blackburn down the bottom, that's a 2-0 victory. So some really nice performances. Another double header at home. Everton West Ham, 3-0, 6-0. Both teams in the top 6 and really fighting for points. So we just showed our class to overcome the most dangerous of opposition this season. Every time we needed to raise our game, the players were there doing just that. So Stoke 1-0, Newcastle 6-0, completing a 13, I believe, winning run. 13 game winning run. So 16 unbeaten. We went to Man United. We did make it 17 in a row. Unfortunately, we lost that winning streak. 3-3 at Man United. There's a video up on my Twitch page of the live stream of it. There's a highlight of that game where we went down 3-1 and I had to pull out the old Christmas tree formation to get us back into the game. So it was a really crazy game. We nearly won it at the end. We had a goal ruled out and missed a couple of chances along the way, but a good performance to fight back at Old Trafford. After that, it was back to winning ways after that. So we look at the Wolves, Arsenal, Hull and Southampton run at home. 3-0, 2-0, 8-1, 3-1. Really good performances, 2 clean sheets, a huge win and then a solid win over Southampton. We went away to Reading, big win there. So that's 11-0 on aggregate for the 2 games. Chelsea were the only team, apart from Man United, to take points off us. So we wanted to get the job done over both of them. And Chelsea's turn was first, 8-0 victors there. And after that, 6-0 away to Villa, 8-0 over Watford, and 4-0 away to Norwich. Really hammering home our advantage in the Premier League at this point. After that, it's away to Liverpool. It's a 2-2 draw there. Couldn't get revenge for them knocking us out to the FA Cup. West Brom 2-0 win. So we're really looking comfortable at that point. Then Man City and Tottenham at home, big wins. Big win over Everton away. Smashed Blackburn, and I believe we relegated them on this day, 9-0. So huge performances there. Good win over Stoke. We drew away to West Ham, couldn't quite get it done there. We followed it out with big wins away from home, Newcastle, Southampton, a tight win over Wolves, who had sort of crept up into the top 8. I think they were looking for that European place, and I think we ended their run at this point, but they'd had a fantastic season, and that set us up for the last tie, which is Man United at home, and we got our revenge over them, made sure we took at least 4 points off everyone in the league, finished it out unbeaten for the entire league campaign, 4-1 victors. So in the league, really comfortable campaign for us, really nice play. 150 goals, 19 against. So we definitely were the best attack by far, the best defence by far. It was really that attack though that managed to step up. 106 points, 34 wins, 4 draws, 0 losses. We said, oh, this wasn't the season we relegated Blackburn. I think that's next season. We did well though to overcome some tough teams. Wolves there look creeping up into 6th. They couldn't manage to jump into the Champions League places this season. They did manage to snatch that last European place, which I thought they didn't do for another season or 2, but you know, they were becoming a force. Stoke had a good season, but it was a one-off realistically. Arsenal and Liverpool falling down into mid-table. Newcastle, Tottenham, you know, Villa had a good season for them. They'd been struggling throughout the course of the season, but they managed to pull out some decent results and hoist themselves clear. And at the bottom, Hull, Norwich and West Ham getting absolutely smashed. The West Ham had been up into mid-table at one point, but they went into free fall, and they are one of those teams which were either in the top 10 or were in the bottom 3. So a very interesting campaign. As I said, we did well to clinch the title, but on the whole it was kind of expected. And then we'll jump in and have a quick look at the transfers to run things off. Not too much business done. At the start of the season, picked up Herman Diarra, a nice left winger from Paris Saint-Germain, £18 million. So I figured that we'd need cover for Gareth Bale. We didn't have a lot in the squad, and more importantly, we'd need to replace Gareth Bale because he was getting on a little bit. I wanted to sell him because I thought now we'd make the most profit off him, and Diarra was a very good looking youngster. He had a lot of physical attributes, he had a lot of mental attributes, and he had the key technical attributes as well for that right wing role: crossing, dribbling, passing, first touch technique. So he's a really good player, and I figured £18 million, we'd sell Bale for at least double that and get a player of similar quality for half the price and 4 or 5 years younger. As well as that, in January we picked up Trevor Newton, a young 18-year-old or even 17-year-old I believe at the time, from Tottenham. He had a 19 passing, 18 creativity, and a whole host of other nice stats at 12 to 15 sort of level, including quite nice physicals. So I figured that was a safe bet. We needed to replace Freddie Green going forward, because he was coming to the end of his Swansea career as well. And I thought perhaps with Bale and Green going out, maybe next season, maybe the season after, to spend 28 million, you know, I'd probably make 3 times that much from Bale and Green, and you know, we'd have younger people to fill that slot and sort of step up. So I'm really pleased with those 2 signings. On the outgoing side of the transfers this season, Watford picked up a couple of youngsters from our reserves. You've got Steve Kerr, a pretty decent striker. Polanski's a pretty decent young goalkeeper. I think they spent a little bit too much money on them for the players they were then, but they did have potential to improve further, and I believe 6.5 million for those 2 would go on to be good signings for Watford. But at the time we needed the money coming in just to cover the transfers we had. So Kerr and Polanski, good pickups there. QPR came from McConnell, and he was a very solid striker, but didn't score too many goals, so we weren't losing anything. Again, is from the reserves, all these players are. And you know, a decent pickup for QPR, but a good sale at the time for us. Thomas McDonald, a good left wing central midfielder. He goes out to Stoke. He went and did very well for himself there, but 5 million at the time was too good to turn down. John Winters, quite similar. He goes out to Everton, £5 million. He's a solid central midfield player, very attacking minded, and he sit well with the other central midfielder that Everton bought, Gustavo Palumbo, a defensive minded midfielder. So that was quite a foundation to build their midfield on. £10 million the pair. I think Everton did quite well, but so did we. We needed that money in. We needed to get rid of a few reserves. The squad was a little too big at this point, so quite happy with those deals. Then Nick Watson, he heads to West Ham. You know, it's another 5 million. Good little central defender, no nonsense. Very limited defender in some cases, but you know, it was what West Ham needed. There was a bit more strength at the back, so we sold him to them. Sadly, as we saw, they ended up going down, but he would be a big part of their resurrection over the next couple of seasons. And then Brian Dunn, young goalkeeper out to Newcastle, quick £1 million on him. He was never going to make it for us. And we finish out with Jose Garcia. He goes out to Southampton, a left winger primarily, although I believe they did start playing him down the centre. Very tricky attacking player, but not going to make it for us. So that rounded up our sales for the season. £33 million coming into the bank, offsetting the 28 that we spent, plus about the 5 million signing on fees. We probably paid a little bit more than that, but on the whole it covered things quite nicely. We sold some reserves which we needed to do to bring through the youngsters, so it freed up a little bit of space, and plus we didn't need any of these players either currently or going forward into the future. So a really good set of transfers for this 2018 to 2019 season. And that does it for our 7th season in charge of Swansea City, guys. So we've won the league, we've won a lot of trophies. Once again we've capitulated in the FA Cup, and we're going to have to really step our game up. We signed a couple of good youngsters. We've got plans to sell and move on a couple more first team players over the next 2 seasons. So we knew what we were doing, but all in all, great success, great fortune in the league again, and in most of the other competitions, making a profit, and who knows, perhaps next season we could lift them all, including the FA Cup for the first time, and finally complete our trophy cabinet. come back soon to see if we can do it, because there are more Swansea City adventures on the way, and there are 5 seasons to go before we're up to date. But it's goodbye for now. My name's Chris Ormie, and as always guys, take care of yourselves.